Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Crusadia deck profile. So this is actually one of my favorite decks of all time to actually play around with because it OTKs out of nowhere and is so annoying with the amount of Kaijus that you actually play around with in this particular deck to get rid of and handle opponents' problematic boards. It's really fun and summons one of the best OTK makers in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! In the form of Crusadia Equal Max, and it's probably one of the most budget builds you can ever build, being able to get the entire main deck for around $20 to $30 for the entire main deck. It's really budget and really fun to play around with. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can come part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below because we have some awesome rewards for you guys, like getting your name description every single video, getting a signed card sent in the mail, or even getting a requested deck profile every single month that you're a patron along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Crusadia Equal Max. So all the Crusadia monsters share the exact same ability, which is the ability that you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position to a zone and link monster points to. And you can only special summon each Crusadia once per turn this way. And then you can target one link monster. This one has this particular ability. They all share that very first ability. Then they also have additional abilities, like for instance, Equal Max has the ability that you can target one Crusadia link monster you control. This turn, the attack, if it inflicts battle damage to your opponent, any battle damage inflicted to your opponent is doubled to your opponent, which is really good to be able to just inflict double damage to your opponent off your copy of Equal Max. We then play 3 copies of Crusadia Draco. Crusadia Draco is Crusadia Equal Max's best friend. If you guys don't know the lore behind with the World Legacy, this is actually the World Legacy Guard Dragon, and this is actually the very first World Legacy guy, which is really cool. But it has the effect that you can special summon this card from your hand, same thing as Equal Max, to his link monster's zone that it points to. And then it also has the ability that this card is normally special summon, then to a zone a link monster points to, you can target one Crusadia card in your graveyard and add that target back to your hand, which is really good for recovering some of your Crusadia monsters back from the graveyard. We then play 3 copies of Crusadia Leonis. Leonis lets you inflict piercing damage by targeting a Crusadia monster that you control, which is pretty good to be able to just inflict piercing damage. Actually, I'm really glad that they finally super rare printed this. I know it's been a couple of OTS packs ago, but for a while, this was like the only card in the entire main deck that wasn't super rared or hollowed out from the Megatons last year. And it was really kind of like, man, come on, give us all of them in hollow. We then play 3 copies of the Crusadia Tuner monster. She's alright in the deck. She lets you once per turn if a Crusadia monster you control would be destroyed by battle or by card effect. Then you can banish this card from your graveyard, field, or graveyard instead, which is a really good effect just to be able to stop your opponent from doing all sorts of shenanigans against you, to be able to protect your cards, but she comes up every so often. We then play 3 copies of Reclusia. Reclusia is essentially Scrap Dragon in this deck because it has a really neat effect to be able to go into popping a card of your opponent controls and popping a card you control as well, which is super helpful in this deck. We then play a single copy of World Legacy World Crown, which is basically a pseudo Crusadia monster that lets you special summon to a zone link monster points to as well. And it also has the ability that once per turn, quick effect, you can activate this effect to tribute this card and negate the activation, and if you do destroy it, of a monster on the field that was special summoned from the extra deck, which is really cool. And if this card is normal summoned or set, card is tributed, then you can add a Crusadia, you can add a World Legacy spell or trap from your deck to your hand, but you have to normal summon it. We then play 3 copies of Rescue Cat in the deck as well. Rescue Cat helps out as well a lot because you can tribute this card to be able to special summon 2 level 3 or lower beast monsters from your deck, which is your Crusadia Leonis and your copy of Elephon as well, because Elephon comes in handy in this deck because it's a level 2 Earth Tuner monster that helps you get into Naturia Beast, which is super helpful to be able to go into a copy of Leonis and then a copy of Elephant, synchro together, go Naturia Beast, and then have an Equal Max on the field as well to back up the Naturia Beast to give you pretty much a free game. So that's it for the Crusadia and the Tech Beast cards. Let's get into the Kaijus of this particular deck and the hand traps. So for the Kaijus, we're going to be playing a single copy of the Thunder King Kaiju because it's a 33 beat stick and just helps you out. 1 copy of Jizukiro. Jizukiro is the one I don't want to draw all the time because my opponent, if they're playing against Cyber Dragons or something like that, this card comes in really bad because it does get linked away really easily with their copy of Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon, and it's just really easy for them to out and use to their own advantage. 1 copy of Dolgaran, aka Godzilla. card's really good in the deck too because it just helps out overall with a 3k beat stick. 1 copy of the multi-dimensional Kaiju, 1 copy of Gandarla as well because Gandarla is just a 27 beat stick, and then a single copy of Gamma Seal. We're not playing Kumungus in this deck. I actually dropped Kumungus out of the deck because I wanted to play a little bit more hand traps in the deck, but I feel like 6 is the optimal number for your Kaijus in this particular deck. You can play more if you want to play more and drop out the copies of Nibiru that I'm about to show you guys, but the Kaijus come in super helpful to be able to tribute your opponent's monsters. And also the really cool important thing about this is if you have your copy of Equal Max just sitting right here, then you can guess what? Put it right here, and this will gain the attack of the Kaiju going up to 4,200, which is really good to be able to gain those additional attack points, which is super nice in this particular deck. So for the other cards we're playing for hand traps, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Psyframe Gear Gamma. Gamma is just really helpful, especially in a going second build like this. You are very, very going second in this deck, playing Kaijus and playing the Crusadia cards. We're trying to establish your equal max to OTK through a board. Your copies of your Kaijus just deal with an opponent's board, and especially where you're trying to deal with a particular play that your opponent might be doing. This card comes in super handy, especially to negate hand traps if you're trying to search your deck for something or you're trying to go off with a particular play. 1 copy of Driver just to go with your copy of Gamma, to be able to get out your copy of Driver with the copy of Gamma. Essentially, you're just using this because it says you have to. It is a Garnet in the deck, but you have to play it as a 1 of. We then play 2 copies of Nibiru. Now, if you don't want to play Nibiru and you want to go a little bit more budget, play some more Kaijus in the deck. You can change these out, put Kaijus in the deck. It's totally fine. It's not going to change the deck up. This card's just really good to be able to top deck it. Or not top deck it, but have it in your opening hand. If your opponent tries to summon this unbreakable board, then you just drop Nibiru against your opponent and then OTK through a Nibiru token, which is really, really easy to do, especially if you put Leonis and your copy of Nibiru token. Like you have Nibiru token here, you have Leonis and Equal Max here, and then you have your copy of your Equal Max in the middle. And this card, the token is actually pointing downward towards the copy of your Equal Max. It's going to gain the attack of the token, which is super helpful. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. It's actually like 32 monsters in the deck. It's a heavy monster count, but you need them all. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of World Legacy Succession. The World Legacy Succession is essentially a searchable form of Monster Reborn. Lets you target a monster in your graveyard, special summon it to a link zone that a link monster points to. Crusadia Revival is a card that you're going to need very, very much all the time. That lets you, all Crusadia monsters gain 500 attack, and then once per turn, you can target a Crusadia Link monster you control, and this turn, it can attack all monsters your opponent controls, and your opponent can't, and then once per turn, and also other monsters you control cannot attack, not a big deal. And then we're going to be playing a single copy of Crusadia Testament. Testament's good as well because it lets you, your opponent cannot activate cards and effects in response to the activation of your Crusadia monster's effects, which is pretty cool. This turn at all. So you want to get this card as quickly as possible to just activate it and say, nope, everything's a speed spell 4. I can do what I want. And then also after damage calculation, if your Crusadia Link monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can draw cards equal to the number of the link rating of the monster. So for instance, if I have a 3 like this, I can draw 3 cards from the deck, which is pretty good. 2 copies of Crusadia Power. I still really think 2 copies of Power is the way to go because it's never a bad top deck. It has the ability to let you target Crusadia monster you control, and that Crusadia monster is unaffected by its own card effects, or by card effects except its own, which is pretty good to be able to protect your Crusadia monsters if your opponent's going to try and get rid of them. This card is a really, really powerful card. And then we play 3 copies of Interrupted Kaiju Slumber because it is a board wipe that if your opponent establishes a crazy board and you don't have Nibiru, you can always drop Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, which is the original Nibiru, to get rid of all the monsters your opponent controls, and then give your opponent a Kaiju and you get a Kaiju, and guess what? It's your card, so you get to put it where you want on their field, which is pretty good. So I always get to put it where it's pointing towards my Equal Max. So yeah, the attack of the monster, which is pretty nice. So that's it for the spells, guys, and that's actually it for the main deck. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, you're going to be playing 2 copies of Crusadia Equal Max. Crusadia Equal Max is an insane boss monster in this deck that has the ability that gains attack equal to the combined regional attack of all monsters that it points to here, and up north of it, which is pretty cool. And it also has the ability that monsters this card points to cannot attack, and then once per turn, quick effect, you can tribute a Crusadia or a World Legacy monster this card points to, and then target one face-up card your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end phase of the turn. So it's a walking negation on top of being an OTK beast, We then play 2 copies of Regulex. Regulex is really good and kind of, again, one of those things, pet peeve. It's not super rare. It's not a holo. It's kind of frustrating. I really wish they would hollow out this card and just give it to us an OTS pack or gold rare or something like that. I don't care. Just give me a super rare Regulex, please. Or a ultra rare, gold rare. I don't care. Just give me a holo version. But it has the ability that gains attack equal to the combined original attack of all monsters card points to. And it also has the ability that if an effect monster is special summoned to a zone this card points to, you can add a spell or trap that's a Crusadia spell or trap from your deck to your hand. Then we play 2 copies of Crusadia Magius, which has the same exact effect as Regulex, except it lets you add a Crusadia monster from your deck to your hand instead of a spell or a trap. 1 copy of Crusadia or Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax, which is a pretty good boss monster to summon in this deck. You summon it every so often in this deck. Usually you're just going for equal max. You don't really go for this card all that often, but it's there just in case you need it. To be able to just punch through monsters that your copies of your other monsters might not be able to get over. This card's really good. 1 copy of Spatha. Spatha, again, kind of comes up every so often because it can move cards, which is kind of helpful. And then a single copy of Lib, World Key Blade Master. She's really good because she has the ability that during your main phase, you can set a World Legacy spell or trap from your deck to your hand, but it can't be activated this turn. And then while you control no World Legacy monsters in your graveyard, and then she can only be summoned if you have a World Legacy card in your graveyard. And if this card is link summoned, is sent to the graveyard as a link material, you can shuffle 1 random card on the field into the deck, which is really good. And the reason I play her as a 1-of to be able to shuffle cards. 1 copy of Appaloosa, because she can just deal with so many card effects, especially with playing the copy of IP Masquerena. You can just deal with a lot of problematic stuff with this card. Unicorn, because it can spin stuff. Phoenix, because it can pop spells or traps. A single copy of IP Masquerena, because you can link summon during your opponent's turn and the link monster is protected. 1 copy of Omega, because you do play the driver and you do play the copy of your Gamma as well. And then a single copy of Naturia Beast, because Naturia Beast negates spells and it's really easy to go into in this deck. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed this deck. It's a really fun deck to play around with. I love this particular build. I know there's like a Dragon Link particular build of this, and I'm just not a big fan of it compared to the original like pure build, because the pure build focuses around summoning your copy of Equal Max using Kaijus to like kind of annoy your opponent and either peck at your opponent until you do win, or you just like one-shot them with the copy of Equal Max and you just win, which is hilarious to just go like, bah, and you win. I mean, I just love that. I love decks like that. To summon a really big boss monster. That's why I love Utopia Double so much, because you just summon something like that and you OTK them. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can come part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.